The small town of Oakwood was known for its quiet streets where nothing ever seemed to go wrong. Tall oak trees lined the roads, their branches swaying gently in the afternoon breeze. Children played in front yards, and neighbors waved to one another from porches. But beneath the calm surface, tensions simmered. For some, Oakwood wasn't as peaceful as it appeared. Officer Dan Reynolds had patrolled these streets for over a decade. With his square jaw, icy blue eyes, and a permanent frown, he carried himself like a man who believed the world owed him respect. His reputation among the townsfolk was mixed. Some praised him for being tough on crime, while others whispered about his habit of stopping young black men for no clear reason. Dan didn't care about the whispers. To him, rules were rules, and he was the one holding the badge. That afternoon, Dan cruised slowly in his squad car, his fingers drumming impatiently on the steering wheel. The radio crackled with routine updates, but he ignored them. His mind wandered to yesterday's argument with his wife, who'd accused him of being angry at the whole world. She didn't understand the pressure of his job, he thought. Keeping order meant making hard choices. Meanwhile, Marcus Johnson walked, home from work, a grocery bag tucked under his arm. At 28, Marcus had spent most of his life in Oakwood. He worked as a mechanic at Roy's auto shop, fixing cars with hands rough from grease and hard labor. Today had been long, a broken-down truck, a fussy customer, and the summer heat clinging to his skin. All he wanted was to get home, hug his 6-year-old daughter Lily, and relax. As Marcus turned onto Elm Street, the sun cast golden streaks across the sky. He hummed quietly, thinking about the spaghetti he'd make for dinner. Lily loved it when he added extra cheese. Ahead, a squirrel darted across the road, and he smiled. Oakwood's quiet charm had always comforted him, even on tough days. But comfort vanished when a police cruiser rolled up beside him. Marcus felt the weight of eyes on him before he even turned his head. Officer Dan stared through the car window, his gaze sharp enough to cut glass. Marcus slowed his pace, heartbeat quickening. He knew this dance too well. Keep calm, hands visible. Don't give them a reason. Dan parked abruptly, the tires screeching. He stepped out, his boots thudding against the pavement. "You, stop right there," he barked, one hand resting on his holstered gun. Marcus froze. "Can I help you, officer?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. Dan walked closer, his eyes narrowing. "Loitering's against the law, you know." "Loitering?" Marcus blinked. "I'm just walking home. I live 2 blocks from here." "Got any ID?" Dan demanded, ignoring his reply. Marcus hesitated. His wallet was in his back pocket, but reaching for it felt risky. "Yes, sir, it's in my pocket. Can I—" Slowly, Dan snapped. Marcus carefully pulled out his wallet and handed over his driver's license. Dan scrutinized it, then smirked. "Marcus Johnson. You got a record, Mr. Johnson?" "No, sir," Marcus said, forcing politeness. "Never been arrested." Dan's smirk didn't fade. He handed back the ID, then gestured to the grocery bag. "What's in there?" "Just groceries. Pasta sauce, some snacks for my kid." "Let's see." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he opened the bag. Dan rifled through it, knocking a box of spaghetti to the ground. The plastic cracked, scattering noodles across the sidewalk. "Oops," Dan said flatly. A woman walking her dog paused, watching. A man trimming his hedges glanced over. Marcus could feel their eyes, their silent judgment or pity. He focused on his breathing. Don't react. Don't give him what he wants. Dan stepped closer, his voice a low growl. "You people always think you can loiter wherever you want, not in my town." Marcus's fists clenched, but he kept them at his sides. "I told you, I'm going home." "Watch your tone," Dan warned. Suddenly he grabbed Marcus's arm and shoved him against the brick wall of a nearby pharmacy. The impact knocked the air out of Marcus's lungs. Dan patted him down roughly, his hands lingering with unnecessary force. "You're making a scene," Marcus muttered, his cheek pressed to the wall. "You're the one causing trouble," Dan shot back. He stepped away, nodding at the scattered groceries. "Clean this up and move along, and consider this a warning." As Dan returned to his car, Marcus knelt to gather the broken pasta box. His hands trembled, but he refused to let the anger show. The woman with the dog hurried over to help. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," Marcus lied. "Thanks." Across the street, a teenage boy pulled out his phone, recording Dan's retreating cruiser. The officer didn't notice. He drove off, satisfaction curling in his chest. Another day, another thug put in his place. But Oakwood was changing. People were tired of turning a blind eye. As Marcus walked home, groceries clutched tightly, he replayed the encounter in his mind. Lily's laughter echoed in his memory, pushing him to swallow the humiliation. For her, he thought. Always for her. Meanwhile, Dan parked behind the station, unaware that his badge wouldn't shield him much longer. The video was already spreading. A shaky clip of a bully in uniform, and a man who'd done nothing but exist while black. By nightfall, the quiet town would erupt, and the wheels of karma would begin to turn. The video spread like wildfire. By the time Marcus reached his small brick apartment, his phone buzzed nonstop. Friends, family, even strangers messaged him links to the clip. His hands shook as he watched the shaky footage, Dan's sneering face, his own body pressed against the wall, the spaghetti scattered like broken bones. Lily, sitting at the kitchen table coloring, glanced up. "Daddy, why you sad?" He forced a smile. "Just tired, baby. Finish your drawing." Across town, Dan Reynolds sat at his kitchen table too, but his mood was different. He scrolled through a football game highlights, ignoring his wife, Karen, who glared at him from the sink. "You hear about what happened today?" she asked, scrubbing a plate harder than necessary. Dan grunted. "What?" Mrs. Carter called. "Said you harassed some man on Elm Street." Again. He rolled his eyes. "Doing my job. You wouldn't understand." Karen slammed a cup down. "Your job? Our neighbors won't even look at me anymore. You think I'm blind? You think I don't hear the things people say?" Dan stood abruptly, his chair screeching. "You want to leave? Go ahead. But don't blame me for keeping this town safe." He grabbed his keys and stormed out, leaving Karen trembling with rage. Back at Marcus's apartment, his older sister, Tasha, barged in, her eyes blazing. "You seen this mess online? That pig can't get away with this." She waved her phone. The video paused on Dan's smug face. Marcus sighed, stirring the spaghetti sauce. "What's the point, Tosh? Cops stick together, they'll say I resisted or some crap." "Not this time," Tasha snapped. She pointed to the screen. "Look, comments, shares, thousands of them. People are mad, Mark. Even white folks." He glanced at the numbers. Strangers called Dan a monster, demanded he be fired. A local hashtag trended, "Fire Dan Reynolds." For a moment, hope flickered in Marcus's chest. But then he thought of Lily, her school, their quiet life. "What if they come after us, after her?" Tasha softened. She squeezed his shoulder. "We got your back, always." The next morning, Dan strode into the police station, coffee in hand, ready for another day. But the usual chatter died when he entered. Officers avoided his gaze. His partner, Rick, a bald man with a thick mustache, pulled him aside. "You seen the news?" Dan snorted. "What, another cat stuck in a tree?" Rick lowered his voice. "That video, it's everywhere. Chief's been getting calls all night." Dan's smirk faded. "So? I did nothing wrong. Dude was loitering." Rick hesitated. "Marcia in PR said they might put you on leave, just till it blows over." "Leave?" Dan's face turned red. "For doing my job? This is bull." Across the room, the chief's office door creaked open. Captain Hayes, a stern woman with silver hair, glared at Dan. "Reynolds, my office now." Dan's confidence wavered. He slammed his coffee cup down, storming past silent co-workers. Meanwhile, Marcus dropped Lily off at school, her tiny hand clinging to his. "Daddy, why's everyone staring?" she whispered. He crouched to her level. "Remember how we talked about some people being mean? They're just confused. But you're safe, okay?" She nodded, but her frown lingered. As she skipped into IE class, Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Johnson, this is Emily Torres. I filmed what happened yesterday. Her voice trembled. I want to help. The news wants to interview you, and a lawyer reached out. She'll work for free. Marcus leaned against the school fence, dizzy. I don't know. You don't have to decide now, Emily said gently. But people are with you. You're not alone. In the chief's office, Dan slumped in a chair, arms crossed. Captain Hayes slid a tablet toward him. The video played silently, his own voice barking, "Know your place." Care to explain? Hayes asked coldly. Dan shrugged. Guy was acting suspicious. I did a routine check. Routine? Hayes's voice rose. You emptied his groceries, shoved him into a wall, and threatened him. On camera, Reynolds. It's edited, Dan snapped. They're making me look bad. Hayes pinched the bridge of her nose. The mayor's office is involved. The governor tweeted about this. You're suspended, effective immediately. Hand over your badge and gun. Dan shot up, knocking the chair over. This is political crap. I'm a damn good cop. You're a liability, Hayes said. Turn in your gear, or I'll have you escorted out. Dan's hands shook as he tossed his badge on her desk. The metal clattered, loud and final. That evening, Marcus sat on his couch, Lily asleep in his lap, when a knock startled him. A tall black woman in a sharp suit stood outside. Mr. Johnson, I'm Alicia Boone. I'd like to represent you. He let her in, wary. I can't pay much. Alicia smiled. This isn't about money. What Dan Reynolds did to you, it's part of a pattern. 5 others have come forward. We can sue the department, get real change. Marcus glanced at Lily, her braids spilling over his arm. I just want to protect her. Fighting back is protecting her, Alicia said softly. But it's your choice. Lily stirred, mumbling in her sleep. Marcus imagined her growing up in a world where this could happen again. And again. Let's do it, he said. Dan, meanwhile, sat in a dim bar, whiskey burning his throat. The TV above played the video on loop. Know your place, his own voice sneered. A man at the next stool glared. Ain't you that cop? Dan threw cash on the counter and left, the man's curses following him. His phone buzzed, Karen. He ignored it. The next text popped up. Don't come home. Rain began to fall as Dan wandered the empty streets. His uniform was gone. His pride, too. For the first time, doubt crept in. What if they're right? But he shoved the thought away. The world was unfair. He was the victim here. Somewhere Emily Torres uploaded the raw, unedited footage. By midnight, it had 1 million views. Marcus sat across from Alicia Boone in her small office, sunlight streaming through dusty blinds. Papers covered her desk. Police reports, witness statements, photos of Dan's badge. Alicia tapped her pen. 5 others have stories like yours, she said. False arrests, threats. We'll need you to testify. Marcus stared at a photo of Dan's scowling face. What if they come after my family? Alicia leaned forward. We'll protect you, but this case could change things here. Lily's laugh echoed from the waiting room where Tasha kept her busy with crayons. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay, let's do it. Dan Reynolds wasn't sleeping. He sat on his brother's lumpy couch, staring at the cracked ceiling. His brother Mike had taken him in after Karen changed the locks. Get a job, Mike had said. Any job. But Dan couldn't. The grocery store manager recognized him. Ain't you that cop? And laughed in his face. The gas station clerk muttered, racist, under her breath. Now Dan wandered the town's edge, a baseball cap pulled low, avoiding eyes. At the Dollar Mart, he grabbed a 6-pack. The cashier, a teen with purple hair, rang it up silently. Then she said, You're that guy from the video. Dan froze. What's it to you? She shrugged. Just wondering how it feels, being the villain. He snatched the beer and left, her laughter chasing him. That night, Oakwood's community center buzzed with voices. Tasha had organized the meeting, and the room was packed. Black, white, young, old. Marcus stood near the back, Lily on his hip. "We need to march," shouted Mr. Carter, an elderly teacher. "Show the cops we won't tolerate this." Emily Torres raised her hand. "I'll share the video again. National news wants interviews." A young mother stood, voice shaking. "My son was stopped last week. They tore up his school books." Marcus's chest tightened. Lily buried her, face in his neck. Tasha spotted him and waved. "Mark, say something." All eyes turned to him. Sweat dripped down his back. I just want my kid to grow up safe," he said quietly. The room fell silent. "But this ain't just about me. It's about all of us." The crowd erupted in applause. Lily clapped too, giggling. Dan didn't plan to drive by the protest, but there he was, parked a block from Main Street, watching hundreds chant, "Justice for Marcus." His hands clenched the steering wheel. "They don't know the whole story," he muttered. A rock suddenly slammed into his windshield. Crack. "Hey!" Dan jumped out. A group of teens sprinted away, yelling, "Karma's coming." His reflection in the cracked glass looked haunted. The next morning, Alicia brought Marcus a folder. Dan's record. 12 complaints, all buried. 1 man spent. A night in jail for stealing his own car. Marcus flipped through the pages. Can this put him away? With your testimony, yes. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. Stop the lies or you'll regret it. Alicia's jaw tightened. We'll report this. You're not alone. Dan's phone buzzed too. A text from an old cop buddy. Internal Affairs is digging. They found the Johnson file. The Johnson file. Dan's stomach dropped. 2 years ago, he'd planted a bag of weed in a black teen's backpack. The kid lost his scholarship. Dan had bragged about it at the bar. He grabbed his keys. Rain poured as Marcus tucked Lily into bed. "Daddy, will the bad man go away?" "Soon, baby," he whispered. A loud bang downstairs made him jump. Tasha yelled, "Who's there?" Marcus raced down. The front door swung open, wind howling. A brick lay on the floor, a note tied to, "Someone dropped the case." Tasha called 911, but Marcus stared at the note. Alicia was right. They were scared. Dan didn't remember driving to the station. But here he was, soaked and shaking, outside Captain Hayes's office. She looked up, cold. "What do you want, Reynolds?" I need to talk about the Johnson case and others." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Lawyer?" Dan's voice broke. "I don't deserve one." At sunrise, Marcus got a call. Alicia's voice buzzed with excitement. Dan confessed. To everything. They're arresting him now. Marcus sank onto the couch, relief flooding him. Lily danced around, singing. "Bad man's gone." On TV, Dan's mugshot flashed. Hollow eyes, unshaven face. The caption read, "Former officer charged with misconduct, assault, evidence tampering." Tasha hugged Marcus. "You did it." But Marcus watched the rain wash the streets outside. Oakwood felt quieter, safer. Not perfect, but changing. The headline screamed Dan Reynolds' downfall. Rogue cop confesses. Oakwood's racist officer charged. TV vans crowded the courthouse steps, reporters shouting questions as Dan, handcuffed and hunched, shuffled inside. His once proud uniform was replaced by a baggy orange jumpsuit. Inside the courtroom, Marcus sat in the front row, Lily fidgeting beside him. She clutched a stuffed bunny, whispering, "Is the bad man going to jail forever?" Marcus squeezed her hand. "We'll see, baby." Dan avoided everyone's gaze, especially Marcus's. When the judge listed the charges, assault, evidence tampering, falsifying reports, Dan's lawyer mumbled, "He wishes to plead guilty." Gasps filled the room. Marcus exhaled sharply. Guilty, no long trial, no more fear. Lily hugged his arm, sensing his relief, but outside chaos erupted. Protesters waved signs. "Oakwood stands with Marcus." Counter-protesters shouted, "Cops save lives." A tomato splattered near Dan's police escort. He flinched, shoulders sagging. Across town, Karen Reynolds packed the last of her things into a pickup truck. Her sister Lisa slammed a box down. "You should have left him years ago." Karen glanced at Dan's old photo on the mantel, smiling in uniform, confident. Now, he was a ghost. "I kept hoping he'd change," she whispered. Lisa snorted. "Some people don't." Marcus's victory felt bittersweet. At Roy's auto shop, customers clapped him on the back. "You showed him, Mark." Roy, his boss, grinned. "Proud of you, kid." But that night, as Marcus scrubbed grease off his hands, a black SUV pulled in. Two men in suits approached. "Mr. Johnson, we're with the FBI. Dan Reynolds mentioned your case in his confession. We need to ask about others." Marcus's throat went dry. Others. How many lives had Dan ruined? Dan, meanwhile, sat on a stiff jail cot, staring at graffiti-scratched walls. His cellmate, a burly man named Dex, smirked. "A cop, huh? Bet you're real popular here." Dan said nothing. Dex laughed. "Gonna be a long night, officer." The next morning, Alicia Boone stood at Marcus's door holding a check. "The department settled. It's not enough, but it's a start." Marcus stared at the number, $200,000. His hands trembled. This could change Lily's future." Alicia nodded. "Use it wisely. And think about what you want." What he wanted? Marcus pictured his father's old garage, rusted but full of memories. "I want to open a shop. Help kids learn mechanics, keep them off the streets." Alicia smiled. "Let's make it happen." Dan's first night in jail was hell. Guards forgot his dinner. Inmates spat at his cell. When he finally slept, he dreamed of Marcus, calm, unbroken, while Dan screamed into a void. At breakfast, a guard slid his tray. "Enjoying retirement, Reynolds?" Dan's appetite vanished. Marcus's garage project spread fast. Donations poured in. Tools, money, even a local contractor offering free repairs. At the community center, Tasha hosted a fundraiser. "Mark's Garage, Building Futures," the banner read. Emily Torres filmed teens cleaning the space, laughing, as they painted walls bright blue. Marcus lifted Lily onto a counter. "This'll be your classroom someday," he said. She tilted her head. "Can I paint flowers on the doors?" "Anything you want." Dan's parole hearing loomed. His lawyer, a tired public defender, flipped through files. "With your confession and the public anger, you'll get 5 to 10 years. Dan's voice cracked. "My wife left. My brother won't take my calls. What's left to lose?" The lawyer shrugged. "Should have thought of that before." The garage's grand opening drew crowds. News helicopters buzzed overhead. Marcus cut the ribbon, Lily beside him holding giant scissors. "This isn't just a shop," he told the crowd. "It's a safe place for everyone." A teen named Jamal, who'd been stopped by Dan twice, stepped forward. "Mr. Johnson, can I work here? Learn cars?" Marcus handed him a wrench. "Welcome." Aboard. Dan watched the news clip in jail, the TV fuzzy in the common room. Marcus's smile, the garage, the cheering crowd. It burned. A inmate sneered. "That's the guy you messed with? He's winning, bro." Dan stormed out, fists clenched. But there was nowhere to go. Months passed. Marcus's garage thrived. Teens fixed bikes, earned certifications, joked about opening a Johnson's auto chain. Lily drew flowers on every invoice. Dan's sentence came down. 8 years. As guards led him away, he glanced at the visiting room. Empty. No Karen. No friends. Just a flicker of regret. One rainy afternoon, Marcus found a note taped to the garage door. "Thank you." No name, but he knew. It was the kid who'd lost his scholarship because of Dan. That night, he tucked Lily into bed. "Daddy, is the bad man gone?" "Yeah, baby. He's gone." But as Marcus turned off the lights, he wondered, how many more Dans were out there? Oakwood had changed, but the world was big. He kissed Lily's forehead. One battle won. The war? It'd take a lifetime. 5 years slid by like oil on a wrench, smooth for some, sticky for others. Marcus's garage, now named Johnson's Community Auto, had become a landmark. Teens in red aprons bustled around cars, their laughter mixing with the clang of tools. Lily, now 11, held her own in the shop, handing out invoices and scolding anyone who left grease on the bathroom sink. But peace never lasts. One chilly morning, a sleek black sedan parked outside the garage. A man in a crisp suit stepped out, adjusting his sunglasses. Marcus recognized him instantly, Deputy Chief Cole, Dan's old boss. "Mr. Johnson," Cole said, fake smile stretching his face. "Heard great things about this place." Marcus wiped his hands on a rag. "What do you want?" Cole leaned against a freshly painted wall. "The department's starting a youth outreach program. We'd love to partner with you." Marcus's jaw tightened. "After what your cops did to us? No thanks." Cole's smile faded. "Things have changed. We're reforming." Marcus cut him off. "Your reform cop stopped Jamal last week for walking too slow." "Same old tricks." Cole sighed. "We're trying, but we need voices like yours." Lily popped her head out the door. "Daddy, the sink's clogged again." Marcus turned away. "We're done here." Cole slid a business card into his hand. "Think about it." Dan Reynolds' life had shrunk to a routine. Wake up, eat, work in the prison laundry, sleep, repeat. His once muscular frame was now thin, his face etched with lines. Inmates still taunted him, guards still misfiled his mail, but the rage had dulled to a numb ache. One day a guard tossed him a letter. The return address made his heart stop. Karen. Inside, a photo of a smiling toddler. "My grandson," Karen wrote. "You'll never meet him." Dan stared at the child's face, round cheeks, Karen's eyes. For the first time in years, he cried. Marcus couldn't shake Cole's offer. That night, he scrolled through news, articles, Oakwood PD's new diversity hire. Officers attend sensitivity training. Tasha snorted over her coffee. "They're just covering their butts." "But what if we could change things?" Marcus said. "Train cops here. Show 'em how we work." Tasha nearly spilled her mug. "You trust them? After everything?" Lily looked up from her homework. "Daddy, you always say give people a chance." Marcus sighed. The kid was too smart for her own good. Dan's parole hearing crept closer. His lawyer, a young woman with tired eyes, flipped through files. Good behavior. Completed anger management. Chance of early release. Dan's voice was rough from disuse. "Where would I even go?" "Shelters. Halfway houses." She paused. "Or maybe family." The photo of Karen's grandson burned in his mind. No family. Marcus agreed to meet Cole at the station. The walls felt colder than he remembered. Officers eyed him, some curious, some hostile. Cole led him to a room where 6 rookies sat, fidgeting in their uniforms. "This is Mr. Johnson," Cole said. "He'll teach you about community relations." A blonde cop smirked. "What's a mechanic know about policing?" Marcus crossed his arms. "I know what it's like to get pinned against a wall for walking. I know kids who shake when they see your badges. You want to protect people? Start by listening." The room fell silent. Dan stood before the parole board, shackles chafing his wrists. The panel, 3 tired faces, glanced at his file. "Why should we release you?" one asked. Dan's throat tightened. I hurt people. I was wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. Just a chance to do better," the board whispered. Denied. Back in his cell, Dan stared at the ceiling. Do better. How Marcus's first workshop went awkwardly. Rookies fidgeted as teens from the garage shared stories. Jamal described being handcuffed at 14 for matching a suspect's description. A rookie named Patel frowned. "That's not protocol." "Protocol?" Jamal laughed bitterly. "Tell that to your buddies." Later, Patel approached Marcus. I joined to help. How do I fix this? Marcus handed him a broom. Start by sweeping the garage. Listen more than you talk. Months passed. Rookies became regulars at the garage, changing tires alongside teens. News vans returned, filming feel-good segments. Cops and kids rebuild trust. But one afternoon, Marcus found Lily crying in the office. Savannah's dad said you're a traitor, she hiccuped. Said you're helping the enemy. Marcus hugged her tight. We're helping people, baby. Even cops can change. But what if they don't? He had no answer. Dan's second parole hearing arrived. This time he brought a stack of certificates. Anger, management, tutoring inmates, GED classes. The board raised an eyebrow. Plans if released? Dan's hands shook. Work, stay silent. Never hurt anyone again. Approved. Marcus froze when Cole called. Reynolds gets out next week. Media's gonna swarm. You okay? Lily looked up from her cereal. Who's Reynolds? Marcus's chest tightened. No one, baby. Dan stepped into the sunlight, squinting. Freedom felt too loud. Cars honking. Birds shrieking. A social worker handed him a bus pass. Job at the recycling plant starts Monday, curfew's 8 p.m. The bus ride passed in a blur. His halfway house was a crumbling building with stained carpets. His roommate, a twitchy man, glared. You snore, you die. Dan lay on the thin mattress, Karen's photo under his pillow. Do better. At the garage, Marcus found a dented pickup waiting. The driver leaned under the hood, grease smearing his jeans. Need help? Marcus asked. The man straightened. Older, thinner, but unmistakable. Dan froze. I didn't know this was yours. Marcus's pulse roared. Lily skipped into the bay, humming. Dan's eyes darted to her, then away. I'll go. Wait. Marcus's voice surprised himself. He pointed to the truck. What's wrong with it? Dan swallowed. Won't start, just coughing sounds. Marcus tossed him a wrench. Show me. For an hour they worked in silence, Dan's rough hands trembling. Lily peered over the engine. Is that the carburetor? Dan blinked. Yeah, you know cars? Daddy teaches me. Marcus watched them, his daughter, chatting with the man who'd shattered their peace. The world felt upside down. When the engine roared to life, Dan stepped back. Thanks. I'll pay you next week. As he drove off, Lily tugged Marcus's sleeve. Was that the bad man? Marcus stared at the taillights fading. I don't know yet. Dan's job at the recycling plant was hell. The machines growled, spewing dust and the stink of rotting plastic. His co-workers sneered when he passed. Hey, officer, one mocked, tossing a bottle at his head. Dan ducked, saying nothing. Do better. At lunch, he hid in a rusty storage container, chewing a dry sandwich. His parole officer's warning echoed. One slip, and you're back inside. He pulled out Karen's photo, tracing the toddler's smile. A crash outside. 2. Teens kicked over a bin, laughing. Yo, pig, trash belongs with trash. Dan clenched his fists, then slumped. Let it go. Marcus's garage buzzed with tension. Mrs. Carter, a longtime customer, slammed her keys on the counter. I heard he's back. That racist cop. You helping him now? Lily froze, eavesdropping from the office. Marcus kept his voice steady. Dan fixed a truck, that's all. After what he did to you? Mrs. Carter's voice shook. My nephew's in jail because of him. Marcus glanced at Lily's wide eyes. People change, or they try. Mrs. Carter left, muttering, Traitor. Dan's halfway house reeked of mildew and regret. His roommate, Ray, spat as Dan entered. Cops raided my block 'cause of you. Got my brother locked up. Dan stared at the floor. I'm not a cop anymore. Ray lunged, slamming him against the wall. You think that matters? A guard broke it up. Dan's nose bled, but he refused to fight back. Do better. The next, Lily skipped into the garage bay, finding Dan under a sedan. Why'd you hurt my daddy? Dan jerked, banging his head. I was wrong. And stupid. She crouched, peering at him. Do you miss your family? Dan's throat closed. Every day. Maybe say sorry, she said, then skipped off. Marcus found Dan scrubbing oil stains, his knuckles raw. Lily talked to you. Dan stiffened. I didn't ask her to. I know. Marcus tossed him a rag. She thinks you're lonely. Dan's laugh was bitter. I deserve worse. Marcus studied him. Smaller, quieter, nothing like the bully who'd shattered groceries on the sidewalk. You hurt people, but my kid, she believes in second chances. Dan's eyes watered. I don't know how to fix this. Start by showing up, Marcus said, walking away. At the plant, Dan spotted a new face, a scrawny teen named Eli, flinching whenever the foreman yelled. Move faster, idiot. Eli struggled with a heavy crate. Dan stepped in, lifting it. Like this, he muttered. Eli stared. Why you helping me? Dan shrugged. Had a daughter once. That night, vandals struck the garage. Spray-painted slurs covered the walls. Cop lover, traitor. Marcus stared, fists shaking. Lily hugged his leg. Who did this? Patel, the rookie cop, arrived, grimacing at the damage. We'll find them. You won't, Marcus said. They're just scared kids. Patel hesitated. Reynolds got fired today. Stood up for some kid at the plant. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Dan. Need work. Can clean up. Lily. Tugged his sleeve. Let him help, Daddy. Dan arrived at dawn, bleach and brushes in hand. He scrubbed the walls silently, paint flecking off like old sins. Marcus watched, Lily handing Dan water. Why'd you help that boy? Marcus asked. Dan didn't look up. Felt like the right thing. By noon, the walls were clean. Dan turned to leave. Wait, Marcus said. We got a delivery truck needing repairs. You know engines? Dan's hands trembled. Yeah. Lily grinned. Teamwork. But across town, Eli cowered in an alley, clutching a busted lip. The foreman's thugs loomed. Snitch to Reynolds again, and we'll break more than your face. Dan, heading home, heard the scuffle. His pulse roared. Walk. Away, walk away. But then Eli cried out. Do better, Dan charged, fists swinging. Dan's fists swung wildly, but these weren't the scared, compliant faces he'd bullied years ago. These men fought dirty. A punch to his ribs stole his breath. Another to his jaw sent him sprawling into a dumpster. Eli crouched behind him, trembling. Stay back, Dan wheezed, blood dripping down his chin. The thugs laughed. One grabbed Dan's collar. Playing hero, pig? Dan's parole officer's warning flashed in his mind. One slip. But Eli's whimper cut deeper. He shoved the man off. Run, Eli, now! The teen scrambled away as fists rained down. Dan curled into a ball, shielding his head. Do better. Do better. Marcus heard the news from Patel. Reynolds is in the ER, broken ribs, maybe worse. Lily dropped her crayon. Is he gonna die? Marcus hesitated. No, baby, but he stood up for someone. At the hospital, Dan lay pale and wired to machines. Marcus lingered in the doorway, unsure why he'd come. A nurse adjusted Dan's IV. Visitor for you. Dan's swollen eyes flickered open. Why? Marcus crossed his arms. Eli told the cops what you did. They arrested the foreman. Dan coughed, wincing. Kid okay? Thanks to you. Silence stretched. Machines beeped. I'll pay. For the damages. Dan mumbled. Marcus almost smiled. Just heal. The garage buzzed with gossip. Teens glared at Eli, who mopped floors quietly. He's friends with that cop. One hissed. Marcus clapped his hands. Enough. Eli stays. Dan saved him. That counts for something. Jamal scowled. So we just forget what he did? No, Marcus said. But we don't punish kids for adults' mistakes. Eli's shoulders relaxed. Dan's parole officer, Ms. Green, tapped her pen. Fighting violates parole. You're lucky the kid vouched for you. Dan stared at his cast. I didn't hit back. Still a risk. She sighed. Community, service 100 hours at Johnson's garage. Dan's head snapped up. He agreed. He didn't say no. Marcus wasn't thrilled, but Lily begged. Daddy, he needs help. Dan arrived on crutches the next day, avoiding stairs. Marcus tossed him a broom. Start sweeping and don't talk to customers. Eli grinned. Need help, Mr. Reynolds? Dan's face softened. Nah. You keep mopping. Weeks passed. Dan swept, fixed tires, and stayed silent. Teens ignored him until Lily dragged him into a brake repair. Hold this light, Mr. Dan. He obeyed, handing tools as she bossed him around. Jamal snorted. Look at Grandpa Cop taking orders. Dan stiffened but said nothing. Lily glared. Be nice, Jamal. He's learning. Slowly the teasing faded. One afternoon, a sleek car screeched into the garage. Deputy Chief Cole stepped out, smirking at Dan. Heard you're a janitor now. Dan's grip tightened on a wrench. What do you want? Cole ignored him, facing Marcus. The mayor's cutting our youth program unless... He eyed Dan. You publicly endorse the department. Say we've changed. Marcus crossed his arms. Blackmail? Politics, Cole said. Your choice. Dan limped forward. Don't do it, Johnson. They're using you. Cole laughed. Listen to the convict. Cute. Marcus shoved Cole's card into his chest. Get out. That night, vandals returned. Shattered windows, slashed tires. The word snitch spray-painted on walls. Lily cried as Marcus swept glass. Why do they hate us? Dan arrived, panting on crutches. Saw the news. Let me help. Marcus pointed to the damage. This is what helping costs. Dan's voice broke. I'll leave. For good. Lily grabbed his sleeve. No. You're part of the team. Marcus rubbed his temples. Just fix the windows. At the recycling plant, Eli faced new thugs. Where's your cop buddy now? Dan, passing by on crutches, froze. Walk away, he thought. But Eli's terrified. Eyes mirrored Marcus's that day on Elm Street. Boss wants you gone, a thug sneered, shoving Eli. Dan's crutch clattered. He stepped between them. Touch him again, I'll call the cops. The men laughed. You are the cops, Dan. Pulled out his phone. 911, what's your emergency? The thugs retreated, cursing. Eli stared. You didn't fight. Dan picked up his crutch. Trying something new. Marcus found Dan icing his bruised face at the garage. Cole's behind the vandalism, Dan said. Saw his SUV near the plant. Marcus's jaw tightened. Proof. Dan handed him a blurry photo. Cole talking to the thugs. Eli took it. Marcus exhaled. We take this public. Cole destroys us. Dan met his gaze. Or we destroy him. The next morning, Marcus and Dan stood at the police station, evidence in hand. Captain Hayes scowled. This better be good. Marcus slid the photo across her desk. Your deputy's framing us. Hayes's face darkened. Cole's suspended, pending investigation. Outside, Dan hesitated. Thanks for trusting me, Marcus nodded. Don't make me regret it. At the garage, Lily hung a new sign. No hate here. Teens high-fived Dan. Even Jamal muttered, not bad, old man. Dan's phone buzzed. A message from Karen. Heard what you did. Maybe we can talk. He stared at the words, hope flickering. Dan stood outside Karen's apartment, his heart pounding louder than the rain. 5 years since he'd seen her. 5 years of silence. He knocked, half hoping she wouldn't answer. The door opened. Karen looked older, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes still sharp. You're late, she said flatly. Dan swallowed. Traffic. Inside, toys littered the floor. A toddler peeked from behind the couch, Karen's grandson with her stubborn chin. Dan's throat tightened. He's beautiful. Karen crossed her arms. Why are you here, Dan? To say sorry? For everything? His voice cracked. I was wrong, I hurt you. The toddler toddled over, holding up a toy car. Vroom. Dan knelt, ignoring the ache in his ribs. Yeah, buddy, vroom. Karen's stern facade wavered. His name's Jake. At the garage, Marcus scrubbed oil stains, his mind racing. Cole's suspension hadn't stopped the threats. Anonymous calls, rocks thrown at windows. Oakwood's underbelly was fighting back. Lily burst in, waving her phone. Mr. Dan's on the news. He saved a kid at the park. The clip showed Dan pulling a boy from a frozen pond, ignoring his own limp. Comments flooded in. Hero. Maybe people can change. Marcus sighed. Go finish your homework. But, Daddy, he's helping now. The world's not that simple, baby. Dan sat with Karen at her kitchen table, Jake napping in his arms. I'm working at a garage, he said quietly. Fixing cars, staying clean. Karen sipped her tea. The same garage you terrorized? Yeah. Dan stared at Jake's curls. The owner's kid? She reminds me of Lily. Our Lily. Karen's cup clattered. Don't. You don't get to talk about her. Dan's eyes burned. I know. But I'm trying, Karen. I'm really trying. She stood, taking Jake from him. Come back next week, maybe. That night, fire lit the sky. Marcus woke to screams. The garage is burning. He sprinted outside, flames devouring Johnson's community auto. Firefighters battled the blaze, but the roof collapsed with a roar. Lily sobbed into his shirt. Daddy, our garage. Patel arrived, face grim. Gasoline cans nearby. Arson. Across the street, a shadowy figure smirked. Cole's old partner, Officer Briggs. Marcus lunged, but Patel held him back. No proof yet. Dan arrived at dawn, soot staining his shoes. The garage was a charred skeleton. Marcus sat on the curb, Lily asleep in his lap. I'll rebuild it, Dan said. I'll work nights, get loans. Why? Marcus snapped. You think this fixes anything? Dan knelt, eye level with Lily's tear-streaked face. No. But I owe her a safe place. And you. Marcus looked away. We're done. Karen found Dan at the recycling plant scrubbing grease off tools. Saw the news, she said. You look decent with Jake. Dan wiped his hands. Karen, The garage. Let me help rebuild it. He blinked. Why? She handed him a check. For Jake. I want him to know. People can change. The town gathered. Teens, cops, strangers with hammers. Donations poured in. Lumber, paint, a truckload of tools. Even Jamal showed up, grumbling. This ain't for you, Reynolds. Dan worked silently, hauling beams, his burns bandaged. Lily painted a new sign. Johnson's Auto 2.0. At sunset, Marcus approached Dan. You don't have to do this. Dan hammered a nail. Yes, I do. Cole's trial began. Briggs testified, blaming everything on Cole. He ordered the fires, the threats. I was scared. But Dan took the stand, his voice steady. I was worse than Cole. But change starts by telling the truth. The jury found Cole guilty. As guards, led him away. He spat at Dan. You're dead, Reynolds. The new garage opened on a sunny Saturday. Ribbons fluttered, kids sold lemonade, and Lily cut the ribbon. Reporters swarmed Dan. How does redemption feel? He looked at Marcus. Karen and Jake. It's a daily fight, but worth it. That night, Dan found a note on his halfway house bed. Last warning, leave town. Briggs. Marcus found Dan packing. Running won't help. Dan zipped his bag. They'll never stop. I'm poison. Lily appeared, clutching her stuffed bunny. You promised to teach me engines. Dan's resolve crumbled. Okay, one more lesson. Briggs struck at midnight. Dan walked home from the garage, exhausted. A car revved, headlights blinding him. Should have left, pig. Briggs snarled, swinging a bat. Dan ran, but his leg gave out. The bat swung, crack, but the pain never came. Marcus tackled Briggs, pinning him down. "Call 911, he yelled to Lily, who dialed with shaking hands. Patel arrived, cuffing Briggs. "You're under arrest." Dan lay on the pavement staring at Marcus. "You saved me." Marcus pulled him up. "We save each other now." Karen let Dan tuck Jake into bed that night. "Story, Gampa?" Dan froze. "I'm not your grandpa." Jake hugged his neck. "Vroom, Gampa." Karen smiled faintly. "He's stubborn, like someone I knew." At the garage, Dan hung Lily's new sign. "No heroes here, just people trying." Marcus handed him a wrench. "You're late for work." Dan grinned. For the first time in years, it felt real. The years rolled on, gentle as a well-tuned engine. Johnson's Auto 2.0 thrived, its walls bright with Lily's murals, cars, rainbows, and the words, "Everyone can change." Teens still flocked to learn mechanics, but now, Dan Reynolds stood, among them, his hair graying, his laugh warmer. One sunny afternoon, Marcus watched Dan teach a class. "Spark plugs ain't magic," Dan said, grinning. "Just pay attention." A girl raised her hand. "Mr. Dan, is it true you used to be a cop?" The room hushed. Dan wiped grease off his hands. "Yeah, a bad one, but good folks gave me a second chance." Lily, now 16, tossed him a wrench. "Stop being mushy. Show us the carburetor." The class laughed, tension dissolving. Karen brought Jake to the garage often. At 8, he shadowed Dan, peppering him with questions. "Why's this engine loud? Can I drive?" Dan lifted him onto a stool. "Ask your grandma first." Karen sipped coffee nearby, her smile faint but real. "He's your grandson, teach him right." But Oakwood hadn't forgotten. Some customers still glared at Dan. A man spat at his feet one morning. "Racist pig." Dan cleaned it up silently. Marcus found him scrubbing later. "You okay?" Dan shrugged. "Deserve worse." Marcus gripped his shoulder. "Not anymore." Briggs's parole hearing stirred old fears. Dan sat in the courtroom, Karen beside him. Briggs, thinner and meaner, snarled, "You're dead, Reynolds." The judge denied parole. Karen squeezed Dan's hand. "It's over." Outside, reporters mobbed Dan. "Any message for Briggs?" Dan faced the camera. "Hate eats you alive. Don't let it." That night, Dan found a letter at his apartment, now tidy, with photos of Jake and Lily on the walls. "Mr. Reynolds, I'm the kid you planted drugs on, lost my scholarship, hated you for years, saw you saving that boy on the news. Maybe. Thanks for trying." "Tyrone," Dan cried. For the first time, they were healing tears. Marcus's phone rang at dawn. "A nursing home. Your father's asking for you." He hadn't seen his dad in a decade. Too many arguments, too much pride. Lily drove him, Dan in the back seat. "You don't have to come," Marcus said. Dan shrugged. "Families, complicated." The old man lay frail, tubes snaking around him. His eyes lit up. "Marcus, you made something good." Marcus swallowed. "Yeah, Dad, I did." His father glanced at Dan. "Heard about you. Proud you changed." Dan's throat closed. "Trying, sir." The old man smiled. "Trying's enough." At the garage's 10th anniversary party, the town gathered. Music played, kids raced toy cars, and the mayor awarded Marcus a key to the city. Dan hung back until Lily dragged him forward. "Speech, speech." The crowd quieted. Dan's hands shook. I was broken. But this town, these people," he nodded at Marcus, Karen, Lily, "they fixed me. Don't give up on folks, even when they're lost." The applause was thunderous. Even Jamal, now a mechanic in Detroit, clapped via video call. "Old man's all right." Years later, Dan sat on the garage porch, Jake and Lily's kids playing at his feet. The auto shop had expanded. 3 locations, scholarships for underprivileged teens. Marcus, hair silver, joined him. "Thinking of retiring?" Dan chuckled. "And let you slack off?" "Never." Karen brought lemonade, her smile soft. Grumpy. Old men. A news van pulled up. A young reporter stepped out. "Mr. Reynolds, your story inspired a film. Any advice?" Dan looked at the garage, at the kids laughing, at Marcus and Karen. "Change starts small, sweep the floors, fix what's broken, and never stop trying." When Dan passed at 72, the town packed the church. Strangers held hands, tears mixing with stories of the crotchety mechanic who'd saved kittens, paid bills for struggling families, and loved his grandkids fiercely. Lily spoke last, voice steady. "He taught me people aren't stone. We can reshape, rebuild, be better." At the garage, a plaque hung. Dan Reynolds, flawed, forgiven, family. Marcus sat there one evening, tracing the words. A teen approached, nervous. "Mr. Johnson, can I work here? My dad's in jail. I need a chance." Marcus handed him a broom. "Start here, and welcome." The boy swept, humming. Somewhere Dan grinned. Oakwood wasn't perfect, but in the garage's glow under Lily's murals, hope thrived. One spark plug, one second chance, at a time.